You are now listening to Femme podcast with Tessa Markle
and Carolina Alvarez.
Femme.
Hi, Femme.
Hi.
Welcome back. I'm like, Tessa, say hello to your audience. It's been a whirlwind of a day. A lot of amazing guests. We're doing our crazy record in a bunch day, and it's been going great though. We've already had so many wonderful speakers on, and we're just going to continue on to bring you more amazing guests. And so without further ado, today we are speaking with Luis Ortiz from the Latino Public Broadcasting. I was able to get in touch with him, and I just knew right away that he was someone that we needed to have on the show. The Latino Public Broadcasting is a nonprofit organization, and it supports the development, production, acquisition, and distribution of content that is representing the Latino community, which is amazing and such a support that the Latino community needs. And they don't just stop there. They're definitely supporting women and women filmmakers and just diverse creators as a whole. So in this episode, we really dive into the different programs, and they really offer amazing programs for short content, documentaries, feature length. They have a variation of programs that you guys will get to learn about today, and just overall how that process looks like, where does it go, and there's definitely ways for the non-Latino emerging filmmaker community to come in and find a way to be a part of these programs. So, tune in, fam, as a whole. I think you're gonna find some amazing resources, because a lot of times we don't know of these government grant programs or these other fiscal sponsorship programs. And Tessa and I are really here to find those programs for you, fam, to have access to and not limit yourself, because we all know fundraising is hard. Yeah. Getting your project made is hard. So I'm really excited to have Luis on today to speak to us on all that.
Yeah. And, beyond just fundraising, once the film is made, it's hard to get it out there. Where do you put it? And while this episode's more specifically on the Latino Broadcasting Company, we talk about PBS as a whole, which, I know for me, I think of PBS as that channel I used to watch when I was little, and I'd watch Mr. Rogers and Zoom on and learn things and stuff. But it's so much more than that. The public broadcasting system is a huge thing, and there's so much content available on there, and they definitely have kept up with the times. They have streaming apps. They're not just, that channel 3 or whatever that you can get if you don't have cable. They are so huge. And so we talk about that a little bit in this episode as well. So even if you're tuning in thinking, well, I'm not Latino, I don't have any Latinos on my team, what good is this for me? Keep listening, because you're at least...
and get some.
Yeah, first of all, and get some. But, you're going to...
There's tons of Latino filmmakers. If you've tuned into our show, you know that. And there's definitely ways to partner, and that is the beauty of filmmaking.
Yeah, but you guys are going to hear about a lot of different opportunities that you may not have even been aware of. So please enjoy our episode with Luis.
So Latino Public Broadcasting, it's a nonprofit organization funded by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and with the purpose of addressing issues of cultural significance to the Latino population in the United States. That's our little Google take, but in your own words, Luis, how would you describe it?
Well, I mean, I the Google take is good. I'm glad that's working. And I think I'm happy to hear we did a good job on
good old Wikipedia.
Yeah, filling out
absolutely.
Our Wikipedia information. But we are a nonprofit organization. We were founded in 1998 by Edward James Olmos, who is still our chairman, and the executive director, original executive director, Marlena Dermer, who also co-founded the LA Latino International Film Festival. So they both have a long history of supporting the arts and working in that space, of course. And Olmos has been doing this all his life, and it's a passion, of his. But it grew from there. We started off as a project, and then became a permanent space to support Latino independent producers in the public media space. And we do that primarily by being a funder of films, and we look at projects and at all phases, including research and development, production, post-production. But we're also a presenter of these projects to PBS. And so, we fund projects, follow them along. Once they're done, we market and distribute them out onto PBS and all the PBS affiliated stations. And so that's, I think, at the core of what we do. We're first a funder, but then also a presenter and a content provider to the public media system. So it's a great space to showcase work, and it's a space that's been supporting diversity, since inception. And we are created to provide a space and add diversity to the lineup with respect to the Latino community, or issues that are of interest to the Latino community, and that's where we come in. So I think that would kind of describe us in a nutshell.
No, I love that your founders have been like with independent filmmakers from the get-go, and starting these festivals and really like just bridging on that community. And the kind of content that that the community wants to support and see, and from that start, and now you have these more advanced programs that are incredible, and that's what I was first drawn to the Latino Public Broadcasting and learning more, was just because these are resources that I think a lot of filmmakers don't even know that they have access to. And it's so important because it's fundraising and getting grants, government grants is so hard. There's just like a lot of process. So to have a place that they can like look and submit to and get that support for these projects that are super important, it's such a wonderful thing to have access to, and I definitely want to go into those programs more specifically.
Absolutely.
But yes, I think highlighting that is really important on the show today, and to take it to what are some recent works, just to give an example, that are hosted right now through Latino Public Broadcasting, just to give them an idea of what projects you're supporting specifically for the Latino community.
Yeah, well, the Latino community is a very big population. It's it's always hard to say. We represent the entire spectrum. Because it's like 25 or 26 different countries that we're truly having to represent.
Right.
But we're always trying to include stories from all across the board. And we also have our own series that we produce in-house for PBS called Voces, and it's actually the first Latino anthology series on PBS, and and it's their dedicated space to showcase Latino works or Latino stories. And through that, we've been able to share a lot of stories. And so the most recent ones we've had, I think, aired this past fall on our Voces series. One was a co-presentation with the American Masters series, and it took a look at Latinos in Hollywood. It was called Light, Cámara, Acción, and by Ben de Jesus. And it was a look at the past, present, and future of Latino representation in Hollywood, and sort of, how long it's taken to get there, but a brightful look into the future and things, that are beginning to change. And we were starting to showcase like a new range of showrunners, actors, and different people involved that are starting to make a little bit more impact and break those barriers. So, that was
that's awesome.
A great piece that we were really happy to have. We also had two other programs, one called Letters to Eloisa, that was, signature Voces piece that took a look at Cuban writer, poet, and essayist Jose Lezama Lima, and what he dealt with as a writer during the Cuban Revolution, who was also gay and had to be, was not able to, talk openly, about that, during those times. So he wrote about it in his book and became a very controversial subject. So it's a look at his life and work. And then we also had a film called American Exile that took a look at two Vietnam veterans, Latino veterans, who got deported, and were trying to fight back after fighting for this country to be able to stay here. So it was a big social issue that was actually resolved through the new administration. But those are just a couple of examples of things that we do.
Yeah, and I love that. Excuse me. I love that you're getting these things out there, because I think sometimes we forget that public broadcasting is something that we have access to, and I know not everybody has cable anymore, but a lot of people still do. And to think to see your film on TV, how amazing is that, and it is something that is accessible, and this company is making it more accessible, especially for the Latino community. And it's just, it's a resource that I think we kind of forget about sometimes, but it's such a good resource, and it's such a great way to get this content out there.
It is a great resource, and it's a resource that was created to be able to reach folks who couldn't get cable, or underserved communities, and that was I think why public television was created, mm-hmm. and it's part of basic television. So you don't even have to have cable to be able to access it. If you're still watching television or content through basic television, which is now you have your digital box, you can still access PBS and watch this content. But at the same time, they are very proactive in staying with the current landscape. So they are streaming all their content as well. And you can, you can find it, anywhere. You can stream Roku, Apple TV, Amazon, and is also available on demand, through your local cable company as well as their dedicated, linear channel. So, it is all across the board. You can watch it on your mobile, on your tablet. They are trying to make it available in every space. And so I think that's also very important.
Yeah, that's really great that there's such access to it, no matter what your situation is. Basically, if you have a TV or a mobile device, you can watch it.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, because I think our thinking and our traditional way of thinking about what public broadcasting is exactly what Tessa was kind of describing. It's just cable, that's a lot of people still watch it, but it's really awesome that they're innovating the space to fit the current way that we all kind of digest information and television and media. So
they really are, and I think PBS really was the original, sort of cable channel all in one, because what's happened is they handled history, they handled the arts, they handled science, and now you find channels just dedicated to that, but they sort of have everything in house, and and we're the originators on that, and I think a lot of the public still recognizes them for that. Year after year, they are still voted the most trusted news source in media by the public. So they're very proud of that, and of course we all know PBS from their kids programming and growing up on a lot of that Sesame Street and everything. So that's still there, and that's still their core too. But they have a lot of great primetime programming, which is where the space that we come into, and we showcasing long form documentary. At the same time, we also support short form films, fiction and nonfiction, and that's more for the online space and shorter pieces to share via streaming or whatever platforms for people if they want to watch on whatever platform they're watching it on, and you can still watch them on your good old TV set if you still have that. So
Yeah, which is amazing because
Yeah.
short films don't always really get, or I should just say short form content, it's a little more inclusive, but
Yeah.
doesn't really always get to be shown it beyond, the festival circuit, for instance. It's hard to
Right.
find a place to
Exactly.
put that. So that's really great.
It is great, and I think the online platforms are allowing for a little bit more experimentation in that area. And I'm starting to see that, through other platforms as well. But it's one space where we're able to showcase Latino drama, which is great. It's not something that we normally see on on any of the other networks or or streaming platforms. So I think that's starting to open up too. We are starting to see that a little bit more, but it's great that we can showcase it online as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I that's really, really exciting. I think it's, to do a feature film, it's a very big undertaking. To do a short film, it's still a big undertaking.
Right.
But to have, a place to distribute and actually have it seen and celebrated is very exciting. And we have we've met a lot of Latino filmmakers on our show. So if they're tuning in, which they should, they should really pay attention to this program specifically, because I think a lot of them are working on their own series or their own short films. So can you talk to us a little bit more specifically about this program, and then we can go into other
Yes.
ones? But this one's really exciting, I think, to our community.
We have one funding initiative per year where we kind of invite all of the different parameters, or opportunities, and that deadline is coming up on June 27th. And the different options there, we have our long-standing, what we call our public media content fund, and that is a fund where we fund long-form documentary, and in several different genres. We're really looking for a lot of arts and culture this year, just to try to showcase our contributions to our Latino contributions to the arts, and what we've done in that space. But at the same time, we are still looking at at social issue, science and history. So anything related there, we take a look at. We also have another
That's awesome.
another fund called the Current Issues Fund, and that is a fund that's more dedicated to also long-form documentary, but more with social issue-driven topics, or sort of topics that you can kind of think about as kind of being ripped from the headlines, or hot button issues that are impacting the country. DACA is one, and of course, immigration is another. We also just had a film that just aired on the 18th about the last abortion clinic on the U.S.-Mexico border in McAllen, Texas. And it's called On the Divide, by two women filmmakers, one Latina, Maya Cueva, and non-Latina, Leah Gallant. And that takes a look at three different people whose lives are involved in that issue, and is also showcasing both sides of the issue, which has been a huge hot button issue for the last few years. But that's a great project that we funded through the Current Issues Fund. And then in addition to that, we also have the Digital Media Fund, which is where we fund the short form content. And we do again fiction and nonfiction, but it could be mixed genre. We've done animation in the past, so it just depends on I think that area is just so open to a lot of creative ideas, and so it's a good space to be able to to do that. And I think those are the main areas that we're looking at. So if you have a project that you're looking for funding on, and would be willing to have PBS as an outlet, we invite you to apply to us, and into our next deadline, and see where that goes. And all of our information is going to be available on our website. That's www.lpbp.org, or you can just Google Latino Public Broadcasting. It should come up. But we're also on social media, so you can follow us there, or sign up for our newsletter, our e-newsletter, if you want to get that information directly to know exactly when the call would open up.
That's all great. Thank you, Louise, for breaking that down. Just to open it up a little bit to our non-Latino filmmakers,
Yeah.
is there any way that they can be involved or partner or enter in with, a co-producer that's Latino? Can you explain if there's like any ways that they can fit these parameters to be a part of this?
Yeah, so we welcome all filmmakers to apply. If you are a non-Latino filmmaker, with the project, then we ask that you have a Latino in a major role as part of the production team. Part of our mission is to support not only stories about Latinos, but we also want to support Latinos behind the scenes and advance the careers of Latinos within media, and that's one area we want to make sure that they're being represented. And I think that's been an area that's been lacking as well in terms of Hollywood. I have seen the Latino community really grow in this space, in the last 10 years. So I'm happy to see that, but even more so, we need to continue to open those doors for people and have the opportunities to really get out there and get their work seen. And I think new filmmakers don't tend to think about public media as a way to get their film out or know about these opportunities, as you mentioned, Carolina.
Right.
But it could be a great space. It does allow for emerging artists to showcase their work, as well as really seasoned veteran folks too. So when you're an emerging maker, we also tell you to think about partnering with someone who is more seasoned, and that also helps your chances of getting funded, not just by us, but any other foundation or funding entity that's out there. So those are two key things that I would say. But yes, so going back to non-Latinos, we have funded non-Latinos before, but we will require that if you don't have a Latino, that you add a Latino into one of the key roles. That's very important to us.
Yeah. And there's obviously a need and a I don't want to use the word market, but like we've been seeing just within our filmmaker community of people that we've had on this show, like just so many opportunities that are just now being created for the Latino community as filmmakers. And like we had our episode, I think that was last season, about Standard Fantastic, correct, Carolina, last season?
Yes.
Yeah. Just as an example, but it's, these are brand new opportunities that are emerging. And I just really hope that people are seeing them and are applying to them, because it's things that haven't really existed for minority communities before, and it's just a really great opportunity for Latin voices to get out there and people in the Latino community to actually like have a specific opportunity for them,
I think can be, and I love the idea of a stepping stone. If you're an emerging artist, an emerging filmmaker, or fresh out of film school, this could be a good opportunity. Especially if you're for the digital space, you're working on something short form, to get something done and get out there, and then you keep going. It could be a great stepping stone. One person that I think of that we funded on his first film, and we partnered with Film Independent Project Involve on, was filmed by Marvin Limas called Vámonos, and that was one of the first short films that we actually funded as well. But he moved on to do Gentefied, and was a co-creator of that. And it's great to see someone that we supported so early on has moved on to something as big and great as a major Netflix show. So we love stories like that, and we hope that we can continue to help nurture and support a lot of the emerging artists that are out there.
Yeah, and like you saying, it's a stepping stone. Like that is the hardest part, is to get your film out there to begin with, and a lot of people start with the festival route, but even that, it's like, if you're not in one of like the major festivals, okay, you get shown at festivals, and then what happens? Nobody picks it up, so just to get it out there on any platform that people are actually actively watching is huge. You know, so even if it doesn't go beyond PBS, that's still a big deal. Like
It's
your film was on PBS, you know?
It is such a major breakthrough. And one key point that I always like to mention to filmmakers is a broadcast on PBS reaches more people than if you were in every film festival in America. You know, that's how powerful, broadcasting is. So, festivals are great, and we support that. It's a great way to, start to build an audience, start to build a conversation around your film, around the subject, and also for yourself to be seen. But that leading up to a broadcast, I think that works very well together, and that's sort of, I think, what's unique about public media, and they've been very open to that and supportive of that. You see a lot of films that run the festival circuit, and then we'll have that broadcast on PBS. And the other difference between PBS and a commercial network is that they like to take films and sort of go beyond the broadcast and reach out into local communities. That's part of the charge and the overall mission, and create these conversations around some of these topics. And so that there's more life to a film beyond just a broadcast, where you won't see that with an HBO. And HBO is great; they've got a huge reach as well, but they don't necessarily take films and do this community engagement component that PBS and public media is very, very good at, and has it as a priority as part of their mission.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. A friend of mine actually, she had applied for a job and ended up getting a teaching job, so she ended up taking it. But the job was to go door to door for PBS, and I was like, "Really? That's a thing?" And she was like, "Yeah, apparently it's just it's the community outreach, like you said, that it's." I'm sure again, it's like remind people that this is here and it's available way more than you might think it is, and what's actually like what the content is that's on there. Like I'm excited to hear that this extra content that I didn't know was a part of PBS right now, and that it's so readily available.
Tessa, I'm seriously digging Jambox. The fam needs to hear about their extensive music and sound effect library.
I agree. Not only do they have a huge library created by Hollywood-level composers, but you can search through it all based on criteria like genre and mood.
Plus, they even have detailed stems you can use to create your own soundtracks from the elements they provide. You can literally be your own composer.
6,000 unique tracks and tens of thousands of stems, plus over 10,000 sound effects. Carolina, that's amazing.
Oh, it gets better. They even gave us a discount code for our listeners. 10% off with Femme10. Connecting filmmakers with ridiculously good music and sound effects. Go and visit jambox.io and start leveling up your sound production.
Exactly. Again, that's code FEMME, F-E-M-M-E 10 at jambox.io.
It really is, and they just continue to go into additional spaces. Speaking of teachers, one of the other services that's offered through PBS is called PBS Learning Media, and that's an additional resource that they provide free to teachers. So any teachers that are out there can sign up and subscribe to it, and it is a service where they take existing films that were offered through PBS and repurpose them for the classroom. So, they'll take pieces from the films and turn them into learning modules, and bring in an education person to create curriculum around it. And we've actually created what we call the Latino Public Broadcasting Collection, but it is a series of different films to put Latino stories in the classroom, so that teachers nationwide can use it as a resource, and kids will have an opportunity to learn about themselves, basically. And so that's been an important component as well.
That's really cool. I didn't know they did that.
They do, yeah. And it's supported by the Department of Education. So it's you continue to see these additional resources that they provide.
That's amazing.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. And on the topic of like education, it reminds me of another thing that we had discussed about but prior to this podcast was the submission process, and actually that your program gives feedback, which is
We
a
do,
rare
yeah.
thing to get when you're submitting, your heart, your soul, all this hard work. And a lot of times you don't even know, like, oh, if there was this certain adjustment or something you could have done better, or something in the story or whatever it was lacking. You rarely hear, like, why not? And it's understandable. There's always like a ton of submissions, but if you want to speak a little bit about that, because I thought that was so different than most programs that
Yeah, that's a
filmmakers
great
submit
point.
to.
So thanks for bringing that up.
Absolutely.
As part of our process, we do offer feedback to all filmmakers who have applied to us. We've always felt, as you mentioned, Carolina, it's just an important part of learning process and finding out what's working about my story, what's working about my proposal, what is not, or why did I not rank higher, or what was it that the readers or evaluators weren't seeing. So we do
Exactly.
we do provide that feedback to applicants who ask for it, and I'd say the majority of them do. And it is a time-consuming process for us, but we do know how important it is, because we see it as a way to get sort of like constructive critiques or criticism on something that you will hopefully take back and improve and bring back to us. And we've seen many projects, and many filmmakers do that, and adjust their story or work on the proposal, come back, and then they get funded. So it is possible, and that's another reason why we think it's important, and hopefully it helps move Latino filmmakers forward as well. But we think that getting that feedback is a vital process, and we know a lot of other places don't do it. So that's another reason why we want to continue to offer that.
Yeah, it is a big deal to get feedback, because you're already paying for submission fees to all these different things, and to pay for somebody that is professional to give you feedback. Like, it's a lot of things. So something that a project that tacks that on to just so you're submitting, you can automatically get the feedback if you choose to. Like, that's a really big deal for us creators.
It is.
And just putting together that proposal, I know what because we've had to put our own proposals together for the NEH or the NEA, and I think those are kind of the Bibles that everybody refers to. So our process is a little lighter, but it's even then you still have to put together a 6-page treatment and a detailed budget. I mean, it's a lot of work, and we understand that, and even more reason for filmmakers to be able to find out what's working, what's not, and to help improve it and move forward. And we do it not just so that you can reapply to us, but you can take it somewhere else as well, and hopefully make it stronger for another submission that you might have. One thing I did want to mention too, just really quick, that we're very proud of, is that we fund all filmmakers, but we have funded quite a lot of women filmmakers, and for several years, the majority of the filmmakers we were funding were women. And I just feel the documentary space is a space that's very open and welcoming to women filmmakers, and it would not be the space that it is without the women filmmakers involved. So I think that's very important to say.
Yeah, definitely. As women filmmakers, we appreciate that.
I wanted to make sure that your audience knew that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, because it's, like we've talked about this on the show many, many times, but opportunities for women are definitely growing, but they've always been a little few and far in between, and opportunities that highlight women specifically are really useful, because then it's like we're not competing against the men in the field as well. And, we actually have that opportunity. And then specifically Latino women, like, is the more you can get it more and more specific, like the more and more it helps that community for sure.
yeah, I feel like it's always this rolling effect. We get ahead, then we don't, and it's just like it's not even. It's just getting the support in general in any way. We're not. It's just an amazing up time right now to be involved in and being shared and celebrated. Because I know women work just as hard, if not 10 times harder, to get through the door.
Yeah.
And that's really important to us in our community. So thank you for highlighting that. And something I wanted to just piggyback on to the whole getting feedback is that for emerging filmmakers specifically, whether you went to film school or not, I don't know how many of them are teaching like what a proposal process looks like, what, all of these like detailed like business pitching tools are really, how much experience they really get. So this is an amazing like hands-on way for them to get insight and like, again, another stepping stone way to really get feedback. And without we didn't go to film school. A lot of our successful, wonderful guests who have been on this show, industry professionals, didn't go to film school. And like, there's a way to still do this whole thing and do it professionally and this is like one of these amazing opportunities because we've had to learn that whole process ourselves, and it takes a lot of time. And it's a lot of, if you guys have seen our TikTok, it's like all these pages of just different development stages and the work and the proposal, like you said, the budget. So, but it's all necessary. Yeah. So what an amazing way to also like learn and get a chance to see what the business is like, really.
Well, question based off that too. So do you guys, when you give the feedback, is it more so like on the project, or is there feedback also on like your proposal and how you have like pitched it and all of that?
I think that there is it's feedback on the project overall, but it's also feedback on your treatment, on your budget, on the characters, and what's working. So we try to give feedback all together. It just depends on the project and where it's at, and the points that work and and that aren't working. So we do try to give it all across the board.
Okay, yeah, I love that, because like you were saying, Carolina, like it's a lot to learn just how to do that side of it, let alone like write the project, produce the project, like, so that's good to hear.
Yeah, there's like just two, as filmmakers you learn, there's two things. There's the whole like story or the documentary that the whole storyline that you're formatting, and then there's this whole other work that comes in right after you finally nailed. We were just talking about screenwriting with our first guest this morning, and it's just like I didn't even celebrate my win of writing like a full feature-length script because I'm just still like, okay, we got our proposal down. Do we nail our budget? And it's just, there's just so many things, but it all helps you more and helps you like learn the business more and the process more. So I think this is like a really great way to get started for emerging filmmakers specific. So I just want to highlight that for someone who's looking to, again, find this platform to grow, and what an amazing accessible tool that they have now.
Yeah, and I think that we're looking, primarily at story, structure, and style when it comes to the proposal, and those are sort of key areas that we specifically ask our reviewers to highlight. But I think the other major component to the funding process, to the proposal process, is a sample tape, and and I think for maybe not so much for emerging makers, but for long form documentary makers, we are looking for a sample of the work, and we ask for about 5 minutes, but it can range from 5 minutes to 20 minutes for different funders. Some funders will take works in progress, or even look at a rough cut. And we're open to all of that as well, but we try to ask to emphasize 5 minutes of that project. But I think that's an important component to mention as well, and we try to give feedback on that as well.
Yeah, that's great.
No, that's super important to know. And is there a limit on the project budget amount?
There's not a limit, but well, one, you don't want it to be too low, but if it's also too high, I think the concern there is, will you be able to raise the full amount to get this done? Just because
Right.
funding is so scarce, there are a lot of filmmakers out there trying to get their films done, and there's only so many places that are funding these projects. So when a project is too high, that is a concern, but that doesn't mean that you wouldn't get funded. It may just take longer to get it done. The average life of a documentary film is about 4 years, 4 to 5 years, and so
Good to know.
yeah, we've seen films that have taken 10 years to do, and partially because it's taken so long to fundraise. So it just depends on that, but I don't think it would necessarily count you out, but it could hinder you in that way. The average budget right now, I'd say now is around 450,000. I think for an hour, that's about what we're looking at least for public media or independent film projects.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Yeah, and I think that's a good thing to know, because our producer brain goes, all right, what am I writing the scope of the project for? What's the budget? You always want to kind of match that. So for anyone tuning in, I think it's great to have an awareness of where they should be targeting. And so that's really helpful to know. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then another thing just to mention is that, we do fund projects at all stages, but, we're never a sole funder. So, we're a partial funder. We fund, up to 100,000 on projects. And of course, if you come to us for R&D, you can come back to us the next year for production, and then the following year for post-production. But you have to find other organizations or public television funders out there to help complete that budget. And that's where I think that's one of the challenges in the documentary space for a lot of folks is putting that together and finding all the sources to get it done.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because something with documentaries too that we don't have to deal with as fiction filmmakers is R&D. When we're in development, we're just creating a story. And yes, maybe there's research that goes into it, but that is so much with the documentary, that's kind of the majority of it, is the research and the development and compiling all of that. And it can cost a lot of money, so that's just something to think about, if you're not in the documentary space, comparing, what that process is like.
Yeah. Well, Luis, is there any exciting festivals on the horizon or community-based events that are coming up to leave our listeners with? Anything else you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, so we do have 2 films premiering at a couple festivals. A film called Silent Beauty by Jasmine Jara Lopez, and that's going to premiere at Hot Talk. And then we also have a film called Sansón en mí by Rodrigo Rios and Sue Kim that will be premiering at Tribeca Film Festival. So we're excited about that. And then be on the lookout for the PBS Short Film Festival this July, which showcases lots of great short work by all diverse makers, but we will have a project there as well.
Love it.
Perfect. Please feel free to email us any of these events or information, and we will love to highlight that in our newsletter that we send out on a monthly basis. So that way our filmmakers can be reminded and attend, because I would love to attend the one in July. That's here. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Great. We would love that. I will share that with you, and I'll also share the information on our call that you can share with all of your filmmakers, and maybe there's someone out there that may have an idea for a project and they can apply to us.
Love it. So listeners,
yes.
be paying attention for our future newsletters to get all these details to help you remember. But I know personally I will be downloading the PBS streaming app, because I didn't even know that was a thing. So I'm excited for that, and I'm excited to hear how much more content I didn't even realize was on there.
It really is, and it's so easy to download and good player. So I do recommend it, and you can find all of our content on there as well.
This was such an insightful, amazing conversation. I think our listeners got a lot of great access to what public broadcasting is even and how that works in the scope, and that it still works today. There's still so many, it's evolved with, other traditional windowing options that have been out there for film festivals to distribute. So this is amazing. This is a great resources, and I'm so glad that you yourself are really passionate about, opening the doors for women, for diverse creators, and that this also works for just emerging filmmakers as a whole, because that's what we're also so passionate about supporting. So thank you for coming on today and sharing all of that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate having, this platform to be able to share a little bit more about us. And yes, it is an important, space for me. There needs to be more room for diversity and for all the voices out there that haven't had the opportunity to share their stories. And I'm so happy to have a little hand in helping, amplify that. So whatever I can do to uplift these stories, I will.
Thanks for listening to Femme Regard Podcast. If you like what you hear, tune in every Friday for more tips on the filmmaking business and insightful conversations with industry professionals. We can only grow with your support, so please subscribe, share, rate, and review. You can also join the Femme Fam on Patreon. For more on us, check us out at femregard.com.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.